Welcome to the Transportation Committee. Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you. Ms. Hackworth. Hey, Travis. Madam Chair, you have a quorum?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, the meeting has started. We're going to start with, we have a group of towing bills. We have a group of towing bills that I'd like to take up first, and Senator Peake has SB 66. I understand he has a substitute. Senator Peake in the room?
I don't see him.
He has not arrived. Senator Peake, you're up. Join us at the podium. Thank you, and I understand you've got a substitute. If you would
I do have a
move the substitute.
I don't have my folder.
All in favor to approve the substitute? Aye. Thank you. Please tell us about your bill and how it's changed.
There were
Sorry.
two parts. There were two parts to the first part of the bill. I did not mean to strike the first part of the bill, which had reduced the maximum amount for towing to $50. I have not actually seen my substitute yet. So there are two parts.
Does the clerk have a copy for everybody? Is it online?
So we had, the first part was going to reduce the maximum towing to $50. I don't know if that's still included in my substitute. And yeah, it is. Let me tell you what happened. Towing companies enter into contracts with apartment complexes, shopping places, various entities. The towing companies then wander around at night, especially at apartment complexes, looking for cars that do not have a parking sticker on them. Then they tow them of their own volition. No one's called in, no one's complained. They're not illegally parked. They're just parked at some kind of establishment or apartment complex without the sticker. They then tow them. They can now charge a minimum up to $150 plus fees to take it to $200. Mine would say if they are not called, if no one is complaining, if they're just cruising around looking for money, they can only charge $50. And the point is to make it less profitable. The second part of this, which is the substitute, which goes into prohibited practices, and talking to you from experience, this is my son recently graduated college, moved to Richmond, was staying at his apartment complex. They don't have anybody working there, could not get a parking sticker. Parked in his parking complex, gets up in the morning, his car's gone. They've towed it out. He goes out there to pick up the car, has the keys. They said, it's still registered in my name. It's a 15-year-old car in my name. His name's Anderson Peake. My name is Mark Peake. They wouldn't give it to him. So we have to have a notarized signature letter from the owner of the vehicle to let it go. So that is now part of the substitute is in the prohibited practices. Now they cannot require that you have a notarized statement from the owner if you show up with the keys to the vehicle. So I think everything has to have keys these days, but they're getting to the point where you can just don't even have to put anything in the car. So if you show up with the means to the vehicle, pay the towing fee, you get to take it. They can't make you get a notarized signature. And an interesting point, this came up with one of our government specialists said when she was a youngster in college, they did that in Florida. They took the car. The actual owner of the car was working on an oil rig in Thailand. And then, of course, if you can't get the notarized signature, they charge you an extra $50 a day to keep it. So finally, somebody had to forge and line and create it. So now they can't make you show a notarized statement. If you show up, can operate the vehicle, they let you take it after you pay. So the first part's reducing the maximum amount to $50. Second part, no required notary to get your car back. Because if you show up and you got the key and you know it's been towed, you probably have some right to that vehicle. That's the bill. I don't think it's drawn any interest from the towing community to the best of my knowledge. How many of them are here? Well,
Are there
about
questions for the patron
50 or
from
60 of them,
members?
yes.
Senator Rome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'd ask the senator on line 78 and 79 and 80. The patron specifically deals with Planning Districts 8 and Planning District 16. So it says, localities Planning District 8 and Planning District 16 shall establish by ordinance, and then it strikes Romanet 1, a hookup and initial towing fee of no less than $135 and no more than the maximum charges provided in 46.2 -1233.1, and it then goes and strikes Romanet 2. Could the senator explain basically just from striking line 78 and 79 in the very beginning of line 80, what is going to be the practical effect in, say, where I'm from in Planning District 8 in terms of what the maximum charge is going to be allowed?
Senator Peak, I would just point out that on line 76 and 77, that exact language is
these are
included
not-
in the bill. So you're not striking it, you're just moving it to another place.
And I don't, that is a change from what I'd initially, what I look at is, what I was really interested in was line 89.
So you just moved it. Okay.
So line 89 is where I struck it to 50, and I think that it was added on for section, for locality 8. I really don't care. What's that? Staff did that, possibly. Is that correct?
Madam Chair.
And the substitute?
Madam Chair, those lines were in the initial bill as introduced. The changes on,
Nikhil, could you speak up? We can't hear anything you're saying.
Madam Chair, those changes on lines 78, 79, and 80 were in the initial bill.
Well, just unstrike that. I don't care about that. Leave that. But it will change, though, actually. That's why it's done, is because I'm changing it to 50 everywhere. That's why that's been struck. That's why, so line 89 takes it to 50, so that's why they had to strike it in there. So no matter what district you're in, if they're voluntarily towing your vehicle, they're going around cruising for it, it's not been called in, no matter where you live, what district you're in, 50 is the max.
Senator Suderline, did you have something you
Madam
wanted to
Chair?
say? No, okay. I appreciate this bill. I have been visiting a neighborhood for 5 minutes and nearly had my car towed numerous times. This has happened to me, so I appreciate the bill before
Madam
us.
Chair, I was shocked when I heard from so many people from all across the Commonwealth how many people this has happened to in just such a short amount of time. I understand it might not be the committee's preference to pass this from what I've heard. I don't know what y'all's status is. Is that?
Well, let's hear from the audience.
hear,
If we
okay.
have people here in favor of the bill, please step up. We will limit comment to 3 minutes per
If
side.
there's anyone online that would like to speak in favor of the bill, please raise your hand.
Is there someone online who is?
Madam Chair, there's no one online to speak at this time.
All righty, is there anyone in opposition to this bill? You have 3 minutes total.
If there's anyone online that would like to speak in opposition, please raise your hand.
All righty, Senator Peak, it seems that there is no opposition. Senator Diggs, would you have a question for the patron or comment?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Speaking to the bill, I realize this certainly is a problem. I don't know what the solution is, but I don't think reducing the fee to $50 is the solution, because there are legitimate tows out there that need to be accomplished, and that cannot be done from a practical business standpoint for $50. But I do appreciate the effort, and I would certainly entertain some kind of solution that would work for everyone. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, in response to that, if I could remind y'all to break it into 2 parts. The first part's the 50, which does only apply to when they go find it, not when somebody requests a tow, but also to separate the not requiring to notarize. So somebody whose vehicle's been towed shows up immediately with the keys can get it.
Senator Marsden,
Thank you,
you have a
Madam-
question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Towing is an ongoing problem. I would tell the senator I have a bill in that'll be heard on Monday to deal with turning the whole rate structure study issue over to the SCC. This is what they do. They do regulation. They do, the setting of fees and what have you. And I hate to get the legislature involved in that when maybe we don't have to. And with that, Madam Chair, I would also say that, this is a property rights issue. And we have so many places in Northern Virginia where people just go park in a grocery store and then go someplace else for whatever they're doing. They park in the bank to go to other stores. They take up spaces for people who are trying to run legitimate businesses because it's more convenient that way. It is just a difficult problem, and I know how inconvenient and difficult it can be. I think most of us have been towed at one time or another. But I just think reducing these fees, these companies do provide a public service to be able to make sure that people are respecting other people's property rights. And so, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator Rome, followed by Senator Diggs.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I was going to make a motion at the appropriate time, but instead speaking to the bill.
Please, go
All
ahead.
right. Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, the patron and I will probably agree on like 3 things this entire year. I'm going to make this one of them. The fact of the matter is these folks didn't show up today. And if this was going to be a burden on the industry, a burden on whoever, then they should have made their case, and they're not here. And this is one of the things that I need to stress and that I hope folks in the audience in general have, which is that when we have bills that are dealing with a lot of these different issues and everything, it is incumbent upon everyone to make your voice heard when you have that opportunity. And this is the important part of a representative democracy, is reaching out to your legislators and letting us know how you feel about it. And so, I plan to support the bill today.
Senator Diggs, you had a question or a comment?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. I was wondering if the patron might consider an amendment to strike the $50 on line 89 and return the rest, but I certainly do agree with the release of the vehicle. That is a significant problem as well, and you get half of what you want.
Madam Chair, I believe Senator Marsden has a comment. Oh, I thought you were saying. I think it
Senator
could be
Peake?
broken out into 2 parts. I would ask the first part on the 50 and whether that advances, and if it doesn't, then at least the notarized letter advance.
So,
But with Senator
Senator-
Rome, I think, leading the charge, and Madam Chair having had her vehicle towed after 5 minutes trying to visit somebody, it's a problem, and a message needs to be sent. And again, I state, this is not when they're called, when they're necessary. Madam Chair, as a lawyer, I'd love to be able to drive around and pop people for $200 every 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. I'd make a much better living than I'm doing right now.
Senator Peake, as I understand, I just want to make certain that if I own a shopping center and there are people who are illegally parking in my lot, and I call for a tow truck, that's a different situation.
fee,
But
yes.
if I happen to be living in an apartment building where I have a guest who comes for 15 minutes and that guest is towed within 15 minutes of arriving because they don't have a sticker, that's where this would apply. Is that accurate?
Yes, Madam Chair, and the intent of it is to be, if someone called, so if you're at your apartment and they park in the wrong spot and somebody calls, that's a full fee tow. But when the tow truck drivers just get to drive around cruising, looking for cars that don't have stickers, that's a $50 fee. That is to disincentivize them just cruising around looking for vehicles without stickers so that they can get $200.
Thank you. Senator Williams-Graves.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question for the patron.
Senator Williams-Graves.
Thank you, Senator Peake. In the example of the apartment complex, if signage is there, does that then constitute a full fee tow?
Madam Chair.
Senator.
No, Senator Graves. Unless someone from the apartment complex calls and complains, it could be the owner, it could be someone who lives there. What this is meant to be, and this is what's going on, they're driving around at night looking for cars to tow. and they get to charge approximately $200 a car. I want to disincentivize that. So unless there's a call that somebody said, hey, there's a car parked here that doesn't belong here, if they're just cruising on their own looking for cars to tow, they get $50.
Follow-up question, Madam Chair.
Senator Williams Graves.
Thank you. Senator Peake, and I really like the bill and the concept, but how do you determine if someone made a phone call to the towing company? Are we just letting them, are we going on the honor system that they're not just driving around and had somebody make a call?
Well,
Senator Peake.
And Madam Chair, and sir, that's one thing that they might start doing, have a spotter. They may pay somebody money to make the call, and that's something we'll have to deal with down the road. But right now, they get a call, it's logged in. These places are very sophisticated. They get a log, they keep the log so they can show it. But yeah, they may get somebody, all right, give somebody a kickback. We'll address that next year.
Senator Hackworth. Oh, Senator Marsden, excuse me, you were next, and then Senator Hackworth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's my understanding that a lot of the apartment complexes too have contracts with the towers to do this very, very service. Yeah. Because I know in Arlington, it's a huge problem. People will park there to go shopping because parking is very limited. Arlington, which is part of Planning District 8, they were hoping that mass transit would take care of all of that and that people wouldn't use their cars. So parking is very, very limited, and everyone is abusing other people's private property, including when you come home to your apartment building and there's no place to park because people who are shopping in the neighborhood are doing that. And this applies to those folks as well. I understand the situation, that you're in, but I think this is a little too far-reaching. And although I do agree with Senator Diggs that the other part of your bill is fine.
Madam Chair, I'm glad that I've created bipartisan disagreement and support.
Thank you. Is there a motion before the committee?
Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I would ask the patron if he'd be agreeable to us just including the notarized part and striking the rest.
Yeah, Madam Chair, yes.
I so move, Madam Chair.
All right, is there a second?
Second. And what's the motion, Madam Chair?
To strike the portion around the fee and just focus on the notary part. And I don't have the lines in front of me, if perhaps the clerk would like to clarify that. Staff attorney, excuse me. Nikhil.
Madam Chair, I believe as described, that would remove from the bill from lines 72 until the end, until line 106.
No, let's see. But is that the part? It's in a. I still don't. This is in the amendment in the nature of a substitute, and it adds. Where does it come in?
Senator Peake, it appears that line 84 is the portion where it starts talking about the limitations for. So it would be line 89, strike 50 and leave 150.
66, here we go, under prohibited acts. Lines 66 and 68 would remain.
Is there a second on that motion? Second. All righty, all in favor of accepting the motion? Aye. No. The motion passes. Do we have any more discussion on the bill, or do we have a motion?
Madam Chair.
Senator.
Madam Chair, Senator Peake, now that we just have the line 66 to 68, I guess my question is, the tow truck company is going to have responsibility for the vehicle. And I assume that they require the notarized document so that they're not giving the vehicle away to an unauthorized person. What are we doing to make sure that we're not putting the tow truck companies in a situation where they're potentially giving away someone's personal property to someone who's not authorized to have it?
Senator Peake.
Madam Chair, and first of all, it's not required, so that's something that they've put in. Second, the tow truck industry, and I don't have all the codes in front of me, you can't sue a tow truck company for anything. They are protected. They're the most protected industry in the Commonwealth. The AG is the only one that can sue the tow truck companies for bad practices. So that's why you have to show up with a key. And I would say, if somebody shows up with the key the day after they got their car towed or that same day their car is towed, they probably have the ability to use that car. And so it's a pretty common sense provision, but I don't think they can. But if somebody shows up with the key and they let them drive it off, they're not liable, they're not negligent, they haven't done anything wrong. If somebody shows up, pays the towing fee, has a key to drive the vehicle, how can they be sued for what? They didn't do anything wrong other than turn over to the person who has the means to operate the vehicle.
Senator Sutherland?
Yes, Madam President, or not Madam President, Madam Chair.
Go
Forget
ahead.
where I am sometimes.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've got a few questions. So before you were creating a new job for folks with the spotters, and we took that out, and now you're taking away jobs for the notaries. Is that right?
Madam Chair,
Senator Peake?
notaries don't make any money on notarizing these letters, so I don't think. But it could be, unless somebody's charging, some notaries might charge. I don't
They're
know.
entitled to charge per code of Virginia.
Senator
They're
Peake.
entitled to charge.
Senator-
Madam Chair,
Senator Peake?
is Senator Suderline a notary?
I am not.
Okay, just.
But I am a licensed real estate agent if I can help you out.
Everything goes through the chair.
Speak
I'm
to the
Madam
chair,
Chair.
please. Yes, Senator Suderline.
So does this mean that we're going to have more government by injecting what practices these private businesses can do?
Senator Peake?
Well, that
how
is,
do you
Madam
answer?
Chair, that's
Yes.
entirely what we have, is government regulating what government can do and what private citizens can do. And that's why Senator Morrison may take care of it on Monday with his bill to send it to SCC. But we're protecting private individuals so they can get their vehicles back who may be in a different name. You might have a couple who's not married, maybe driving the spouse's vehicle. They don't have, even if they have the same last name, they wouldn't let the person take it. So you're protecting unmarried couples, you're protecting married couples if they have the car in a different name. It's just, let's face it, if the car's towed and they show up there the next day or the same day with the key to get the car, they're probably the ones that have the right to the car, Madam Chair.
Senator Peake, I appreciate this very interesting conversation. I have actually, if Senator Marsden has a study that is going to be considered next week, I'm wondering if we might want to pass this by for the week and then perhaps incorporate your proposal into his study. This seems like we are not finding common ground here.
Madam Chair, I think we're pretty close on this, being able to pick the vehicle up if you have the keys. Yeah, vote on this, and if it gets, we can strike it on the floor if we decide it's not proper. But the other part, Madam Chair, the other part of this is they get to keep it for $50 a day. So if you, and this, my wife's a nurse. She works in a hospital 12-hour shifts. She can't go find a notary. And so they keep the car for 3 or 4 days, charge her $50 a day until I can get, and we have the same last name, and they're not turning the vehicle over. It's ridiculous. It's outrageous. There's no need for it. I think we should pass that part of the bill, and we'll address it later if we have to.
All righty, Senator
I'm
Williams
so
Graves
reasonable.
has a last question. Let's try to wrap this up.
Actually, Madam Chair, I just have a motion to report as amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
All righty, if clerk would open the roll.
Oh, my. Look at that. Look at that. Peak and Rome, things are happening around here now. We might have a couple more. You just
Ayes
never know.
14, no 0, abstentions 1.
Thank you, Chair.
The bill reports 14-0, abstention 1. Thank you, Senator Peake, for that good conversation. And wondering, we have another of our towing bills coming up. Is Senator Stanley in the room? Senator Stanley? Okay. It appears that we will put the towing bills aside for the moment, and Senator McPike is in the room. Senator Pike, you have SB 246, limited duration drivers and driver's privilege cards permits. If you'd like to tell us about your bill.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and appreciate it. And since we briefly did the intro last committee meeting, we did work and have a substitute for the committee.
Do I have a motion and a second? And a second? All in favor of the?
Aye.
Aye. And no opposed? Please tell us about your substitute.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the substitute, first off, the concept is making sure that we align both limited duration driver privilege cards and special identification privilege cards up with what we experience when we go to the DMV. You currently more than likely have an 8-year card. If you're older, above, I think it's 7 or so, you have a 5-year period. It lines up with that same section of the code, Madam Chair. So the summary is being passed out. What we did last week through the substitute is making sure that we did not create conflicts with Real ID. And so we've complied with this substitute with both Real ID as well as for CDLs for the Federal Motor Carrier Safety portion of the federal law. And so as you can see through the chart passed out, this helps to clean that up and basically makes it consistent for what are existing policies for issuances of ID. So now it makes it consistent across categories. If there's a limited duration associated with Real ID, it's still compliant with the limit of the duration in compliance with federal law, Madam Chair. And so what it does is, as you can see, there's roughly almost 50,000 limited durations that have to come back to the DMV sometimes every 18 months. And so it's sort of a repetitive process that is independent of civil status proceeding. And so what this does is, frankly, cleans up the bureaucracy administrative process and reduces our lines in DMVs, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. I know that we had a brief opportunity, I guess it was last week or 2 weeks ago, to have people from the public speak in support of the bill. Did you have anyone else with you today who wished to speak in support of it?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I believe we had speakers last week in support. I know there's a couple of folks in back. I think they spoke last week in support as well. If they want to just give the thumbs up or stand up.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
That's appreciated, and they collaborated with us in DMV to arrive at the substitute before you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely.
And just to emphasize, it has a huge impact on people's lives to take off work, miss work to go reissue at such a rapid frequency of your driver's license. So we've heard from small businesses, from employees of how important this is. So appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I will just say that my district that I represented over the past 5 years was the largest group of constituents who took advantage of this, and it's been really helpful and beneficial. I hear about it very regularly. Are there individuals in the room who wish to speak in opposition of the bill? Did we move? We did.
Madam Chair, it seems there's one person online that would like to speak.
Thank you very much. If they'd like to begin.
And please unmute and make sure your camera's on.
I just saw the video. Sorry, it was not popped up yet. Yes, well, I'll leave out the part about the limited duration if I'm hearing the patron correctly, that he has returned to original language for original limited duration real IDs, which I'm understanding him to say. The amendment, it's not online for those of us not in the room. However, I do want to say briefly that driving credentials in the state of Virginia are issued in a manner that ensures continued verification of eligibility and compliance with the laws of Virginia. A standard 8-year expiration for non-citizen license does not accommodate this mandate. Convenience is not an excuse for reduced scrutiny. Due diligence should be the only qualifier for any state credential. So since it appears that he has returned the restrictions on the limited duration for the real ID, I'll speak only to the driver privilege and driver identity privilege cards, and that illegal immigrants are not citizens, have no legal status, and have reduced visibility in the federal and state databases in order to monitor movement within the interior of the United States. recent testimony in the U.S. House Administration on border security revealed that DHS only verifies prior criminal activity of illegal immigrants within the United States, but they do not conduct any inquiry as to criminal activity from other countries. Current law allows driver's privilege cards to be renewed by mail once every other cycle without presenting in person. An extension to 8 years would mean an illegal immigrant could possess a Virginia driving credential for 16 years before having to present in person or provide proof of compliance with Virginia residency and proof of income requirements that they must provide currently. So I feel this law sacrifices the integrity of our credentialing system and obscures the type of driver's licenses that are issued under Virginia law. I thank you for taking my comment.
Thank you very much. Are any discussion from the members of the body?
Move to report with the substitute.
Second. All righty. If the clerk would open the roll.
Ayes 8, no 7.
Thank you, Senator McPike. Your bill reports 8-7.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Appreciate it. I see Senator Surville in the room. There are 3 different license plate reader bills. Senator Bagby and Senator Diggs, I believe. Is that correct? Yep. We're going to incorporate it. Senator Bagby.
I'm not ready to present, Madam Chair. I go back.
Certainly, I was expecting that since we have 3 vehicles, we would work from one. All righty, so moved.
Second.
Do we need a vote on that? No.
Not for about the week.
Okay. All in favor of letting it go by for the week?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I thought we were due.
Diggs still wants to roll his.
Senator Diggs has indicated that he's willing to roll his in to Senator. Hold on just a second. Okay, do we have a motion to roll SB 206
So moved, Madam Chair.
All righty, all in, I think this is a roll call vote, right? We have to-
Yes, it is.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to roll in SB 206 into Senator Surville's SB 503. Clerk could call the roll. Senator Diggs.
Ayes 15, no 0.
That passes. 15-0. Senator Diggs will be listed as a Chief Incorporated co-patron. Senator Surville, would you like to tell us about your bill?
Sure, Madam Chairman, and my understanding is that we're going to send this over to the Courts Committee after the pit stop here. So I'm going to mainly focus, or I'm going to primarily probably only focus on the Transportation Committee related aspects of this bill, unless people want me to get into the meat of it, which is
thank you,
all the other stuff. You all might remember we heard versions of this last year to authorize VDOT to place these things in right-of-ways. License plate readers are currently and have been in use by law enforcement agencies across the Commonwealth for a long time, and right now there's absolutely 0 restrictions on them of any kind. I did a ride-along with a state trooper about 8 months ago, and about every 2 minutes, some LPR was going off telling him about stolen cars driving by and alerting him to them. So they're in very wide use as it is. But the Attorney General wrote an opinion that basically said there's no authority for VDOT to place these on VDOT right-of-way right now. And last year there was an attempt to fix that, and then we got into the whole discussion and it all got carried over till now. The version of this bill, I think, that relates to the policy in front of this committee is everything on lines 119 through 134. And that's the part that authorizes the Commonwealth Transportation Board to allow the installation of LPRs on state highways. It has a series of requirements for placing those on state highways and to make sure that they don't create a traffic hazard, or they have detachable poles and things and people running them in their cars. And that process, if there's any issues with that part of the bill, I haven't heard about it. Nobody's come to me and said they have any issues with that piece. I think most of the issues, that if there are any, relate to the judicial or the courts pieces of it about privacy and things like that. But if you want me to get into it, I can in the broader policy, but that's what the piece of it I think that's relevant for this committee does.
Thank you very much.
I don't know if Senator Diggs has anything he wants to say. He's actually been using these in his former job.
Senator Diggs, would you like to speak on the bill? Give you a chance to say whatever you wanted to say on the bill.
Just thanks to Senator Searlebill. Not surprisingly, he wrote a much more comprehensive bill than I proposed, but it accomplishes the same thing in a much more sophisticated manner, and I appreciate his efforts, and I would ask that the committee pass the bill.
Thank you. Are there questions or discussion of the members before we take public comment?
Madam Chair?
Senator Suderline.
Are we going to hear from VDOT here to say anything?
I'm expecting, Senator Suderline, I'm expecting that VDOT will, or someone from the administration would speak to it.
State police here too.
And the state police are also here.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Madam Chair, Joanne Maxwell from VDOT. Right now, we are working just trying to absorb all of these different bills and the various aspects. And so there's a group that's focused on all the different aspects of the bill. As senators noted, we are focusing more just on the transportation aspects. With regard to the regulatory part, the portion of the bill that creates a new code section and regulation, we don't think that it has to be that prescriptive. Bottom line, I think a bill such as this would overcome the AG's opinion and would give VDOT the authority to put these devices in the right-of-way, assuming the General Assembly passes a bill. And we think that our current land use permitting process could accommodate just a very minimal, or we could address this with a very minimal amendment to 33.2-210. But nevertheless, at this point, we don't see major issues with regard to the VDOT portion of the bill where we would be issuing land use permits. But we would need, at the end of the day, based on the AG's opinion, there does need to be legislation that authorizing the use of these devices on the right-of-way.
Ms. Maxwell, would you be able to tell us more about the AG's, or would somebody from the administration be able to talk about how this would affect other entities like way stations or
Madam Chair,
some other transportation-related
one of the things that
groups?
we're being very careful to watch in these bills is to ensure that they are not caught up in the definition of law enforcement license plate reader systems. And so most of those uses of LPRs are already authorized by code or already being used, but they're not. The intention, as I understand it from these bills, is not to capture those and treat those the same as law enforcement license plate readers. So we're keeping an eye out on that just to make sure, and to the extent we may at some point be offering an amendment or language that would just preserve the right of those types of uses to remain as is.
Thank you very much for the clarification. Senator Sturdivant, question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A question for the VDOT representative.
Yes, sir.
Just one of the things you said about keeping this legislation separate from the law enforcement license plate readers. Is there a distinction between law enforcement license plate readers and then what this legislation would encompass?
No, Madam Chair. This legislation is addressing law enforcement, those license plate readers that are to be used for law enforcement purposes. What we would try to do is make sure that we would want to make sure that this legislation would not somehow inadvertently capture all the other uses that are currently allowed for license plate readers, such as tolling, certain like speed enforcement cameras, those types of things. I'm sorry if I misspoke.
Thank you.
Also, Madam Chair, there's been some other
Senator
commissioners of revenue use these to collect taxes. It became known to me that insurance fraud investigators use them to collaborate with law enforcement separately on when they conduct insurance fraud investigations. There's been a couple people that come to me that want to make sure that this doesn't apply to them. Apparently, they're used in lots of places. They're also used, I know, in other. There might be other uses as well, but this was an attempt to focus on allowing VDOT to be able to put them on the right of way, because right now VDOT can't, and then to regulate the law enforcement piece and how law enforcement uses it, which is really an issue for the Courts of Justice Committee, which is what I think the intent was in terms of that part of the bill, which is the meat of it.
Senator Surville, could you clarify, would this allow any vendor to work with the agencies that it would affect? It's technology neutral, I guess? Or?
The intent was to allow the Department of Purchase and Supply to solicit applications from vendors to see if their software met certain standards that are reflected in the statute. Then the DPS would then create a list of approved vendors, which law enforcement that VDOT could then install, and that law enforcement could later access subject to certain rules. The intent was not to get into commissioners of revenue, to get into, I didn't know anything about wait stations until yesterday, I think. I've known about, that's how they do toll enforcement and all that, but I wasn't intent to get into that. We're mainly making sure that law enforcement isn't abusing access to this data is what most of this is focused on. So, but I didn't think that was for this committee.
If someone from the state police might be able to come up and just speak on the bill, that would be helpful. Mr. Maxey.
Madam Chair, Ron Maxey, Virginia State Police. Happy to answer any questions. We do currently use these. We have no position at this point on the bill. We are aware that we're going to be working as this makes its way through session. We appreciate any interest in this bill because it is a tool that is necessary for the work we do.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from members? Anyone else want to speak in support of the bill? Senator Marsden?
Chair, I move that we report the bill and refer to courts.
Second.
All righty.
Madam Chair, I just have a
Senator
quick point.
Suderland.
Did I miss you calling for opposition?
No, you didn't.
Well, let's,
I think
before
Senator
we,
Marsden got his motion in there before you got to it.
if we have anyone in the audience in opposition to the bill, you can speak now. Thank you,
If
Senator
there's anyone online
Suderland.
that would like to speak in opposition, raise your hand.
Looks like everyone loves it.
Motion stands.
I will have a comment.
Just don't tell Senator McDougal.
I'm walking up carefully. We're not opposed to this bill outright. We just have some concerns on some things that we think are missing, including a warrant requirement after a certain amount of hours where a warrant would not be required. Senator Bagby has a very similar bill that has some of those requirements in it, and we would really like, as this is proceeding forward, to look at some opportunities to merge some of those concepts together. Thank you. Oh, and I'm sorry, I'm Abby Phillips from the Legal Aid Justice Center.
Thank you. Yes, please introduce yourself.
Madam Chair, Benjamin Knotts with Americans for Prosperity. This is a marathon of a bill that goes all the way back to last session. What we saw before us was not in a good position. This is a far superior product, but I do want you to know we still feel that for civil liberties, there's some additional adjustments that need to be made, and we're excited to work with the patron to get there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next.
Madam Chair, members, Chris Kaiser, Policy Director with the ACLU of Virginia. Echo my colleagues' comments and just say our concerns revolve around the lack of checks and balances on law enforcement use. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I feel better now.
Thank you. My hope had been that we would have been able to consider all three together and perhaps incorporate pieces, but I guess we can look at that next week if We need to, Senator Yes, Senator Bagby.
There is nothing that prevents you from taking stuff that's in my bill and laying it on top of Senator Servio's bill. Nothing that prevents that.
Senator Bagby, we work by motion in this.
Madam Chairman, he could also do that. He could also do that in the courts committee when we.
No,
hear
Madam
the
Chair,
amendments.
I was responding to your what you said as it relates to your desire.
Thank you. Senator DeStefano.
Madam Chair, I'm going to kind of explain my vote on this. I've traditionally been a no on this concept, and I don't necessarily like it for the invasion of privacy. However, with that said, this summer in Accomack and about 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks before session, we had a series of robberies over a 4-hour period from the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel into Maryland and then back with a high-speed chase. And they used the cameras to, solve one of the murders over the summer they had no clue, no ideas, no suspects, no nothing. They did a quick search of vehicles that were coming out of that area, and there was one car in a 4-hour period. So they kind of took that as a hint, and they were able to solve a murder they would have otherwise not been able to resolve. And on that high-speed chase that went all the way into Maryland, Maryland's not allowed to engage in high-speed chases. They decided to spin back around and come back through Virginia, and the law enforcement agencies were able to use the cameras to track exactly where they were, all the way up, all the way back, and working with the store that started, I think, at 4 a.m. But starting at the first store they held up, they were able to use the cameras to figure out who, what vehicle, track it, transfer it to Maryland when these guys went over to Maryland. Maryland tracked it for a while. We got it back. So I will be voting yes on this and have convinced two of the three proxies I hold to vote yes as well. So thank you very much.
All righty, we have a motion and a second to report the bill to Senate courts, and then it will, if the clerk would open the roll.
Senator, you can vote. Ayes 9. Ayes 9, no 6.
Your bill reports with 9-6. See you in courts.
Great. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. See you there.
All righty. I saw Senator Pillion walk in. Senator Pillion, tell us about your bill.
Madam Chair, there should be an amendment which just incorporates some feedback from DMV.
Okay. Motion to accept amendments in a second. So moved. All in favor? Aye. Aye. All righty. Tell us about your amendment
So,
and your
Madam
bill.
Chair, this bill has two relevant pieces, both of which revolve around police crash reports. First, the bill allows law enforcement agencies to engage with contracted service providers to manage or disseminate police crash reports to entities or individuals already authorized in statute and to keep that statutory fee. Current law allows DMV to disseminate these records. Secondly, the bill clarifies that law enforcement can share non-personally identifiable or non-PII vehicle information, like the VIN level vehicle information, with a contracted service provider. This legislation presents a win-win for consumers who will be working off a more robust data set when they shop for used cars, and for law enforcement who get the benefit of keeping the revenue from crash reports that they worked to produce and by getting access to another investigatory tool. There's likely some administrative benefit to DMV as well, as law enforcement agencies will help shoulder the responsibility of doling out crash reports to those who are entitled to receive them. With that, I hope you support the bill. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I have some experts here as well that are more versed in this than I am.
Thank you. Senator DeStefano has a question or a comment, it looks like. Do you have? No? Okay.
So I'm not sure if that ever cleared.
Thank you. So if you'd like to bring your witnesses up, that'd be great.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Chrissy Noonan. I'm with Reed Smith, and I'm here today on behalf of Carfax and its subsidiary, Carfax for Police. Many thanks to the patron for working with us and for DMV with working with us on this clarifying amendments. We look forward to continuing our partnership with local law enforcement to strengthen the vehicle history database to better inform consumers when they shop for used vehicles. Happy to answer any questions you may have, and thank you for the time.
Thank you. Are there questions from the?
I have one.
Yes, Senator DeStaff, you have the floor.
Madam Chair, if I may, just wanted to make sure this is still VIN specific. So there's no owner information. It's based on just the VIN of the vehicle, correct?
Madam Chair, Senator DeStaff, that's correct. If you look at lines 36 to 37, the release of information is limited to non-personally identifiable vehicle information, and that's things exactly like you said, VIN, odometer, where the damage was to the vehicle, things that you would want to know about when you were purchasing a used car.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. Other questions from the? No? Okay, is there anyone in favor of the bill?
If there's anyone online that would like to speak in favor, please raise your hand.
Okay, hearing none. Anyone in opposition to the bill?
If there's anyone online that would like to speak in opposition, please raise your hand.
Move to report, Madam Chair.
Second.
All righty, if the clerk will open the roll. Motion and a second.
Sorry, move to report with amendments, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Thank you, Senator Pillion. Your bill passes 15-1, recommended. Next, are there any other people in the audience who do not been heard? Looks like not. Senator Marsden, your bill will have to go to Finance if it reports. Would you like to tell us about SB 714?
I would, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Let me just quickly tell you what the bill is, and then I'll ask the staff to report some line amendments. But the bill is a pilot for Planning District 8 dealing with vehicle noise from mufflers. It's become a huge, huge problem in Northern Virginia and in other places in the state, but we wanted to take a measured approach, so we're trying this as a pilot in Northern Virginia. And I will describe the bill, but if I could ask was that? Oh, excuse me, he's turned it into a substitute, so.
Do I have a motion to accept the substitute? A second. All righty. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None.
There's nothing online. Is it when they're handing out?
And if we could have it, do we have it posted online yet? Senator Marsden, if you'd like to tell us about it.
I'll just
we'd
tell
be
you
happy
about
to hear.
the substitute adds a standard by which the 95 decibel limit required in the bill or called for in the bill that it tells it how that is to be measured. It makes some technical changes, changing the term passenger vehicle to passenger car. It adds makes the provisions of the act not apply to things that were put on in the factory. I didn't want to take on Detroit nor the Virginia Automobile Dealers Association, so we're dealing with people who adjust their mufflers for the purpose of making loud noises. It changes state police to the Department of Criminal Justice Services in Enactment Clause 3 and directs them to create the training on decibel detection and the notice of administrative fee. And there were also a few technical corrections. So that's what the substitute does. And then I'll explain the bill.
Thank you so much, Senator Marsden. Senator Rome, you had a question or a comment?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I would ask the patron, the 95 decibel part, basically in lay terms, so if I'm going door to door and I'm talking to my constituents and one of them has a loud muffler, and I'm just having that conversation. This is based on a true story out of Manassas, and I'm having a conversation. That person really likes their loud muffler and everything, but I want to explain, okay, it can't be louder than this. what would you compare a 95 decibel thing to? What is something where I would be able to basically go to that constituent and say, this is the limit, this is what the threshold is?
Yeah. I think that's what the Department of Criminal Justice Service is going to provide some training for officers to do, but it's going to be a judgment call. But if I explain the bill, you'll have a better understanding of how it would come into play. And if I could,
Senator
Madam
Marston,
Chair,
if you'd tell us more about it, we'd certainly be happy to hear.
I got the idea when I got my car registration bill, and I received on that bill an additional charge for the fact that I was using a hybrid vehicle. And I said, well, that's a great way to pay for it. You don't have to have a separate bill. It just comes in on your registration, and that makes a lot of sense. And I started making some connections and realized that one of the problems with trying to enforce muffler noise in the comments, how does a police officer make a legal determination that he actually gives somebody a ticket and makes them go to court, and we end up in having to prosecute it and prove it, and the defense gets an opportunity to defend themselves when there hasn't been an actual, like a DUI, there hasn't been a measure that a court could operate on. It was just kind of judgment calls, and police just hated to do that. It was something that it was a big waste of their time, and these things got thrown out of court. So what had occurred to me, and here's how this would work. And I appreciate the state police and DMV and Department of the DEQ for all the help they provided this summer. We had a work group with Delegate Watts, and and the amendments, by the way, that you just received will put this in line with the House bill. And make that a little easier when it comes over. But we really put a lot of work into this in the off season. So here's what will happen. Suppose a complaint comes in a neighborhood that they call the local police department, say, this guy has this muffler, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, he's riding around the neighborhood, he and 3 other people are parking out here and they're gunning the engines in a sort of a noise-making contest. And can you do something about it? Well, the police show up and they hear it, but they can't prove it. But in this way, they can say basically this: I'm issuing you this notice that I think your muffler is out of compliance with the 95 decibel limit. And what we finally determined was you would go to an emissions station. So this is not part of the safety inspection. You would go to a place that DEQ has licensed to do the non-attainment zone emissions inspections in Northern Virginia in Planning District 8. And you would go there and you would have your vehicle by a calibrated machine tested for that. If you pass, great, sorry for the inconvenience, but your muffler's a little loud, you might want to do something about that, but not required. If you fail, you're just given a notice, come back in 30 days, get it fixed. If you don't show up in the first place, or you don't go get it repaired and don't show back up with the notice that you've repaired and get retested, then $250 is added to your car registration the next time it comes up. No court, no hassle for police, scientific evidence. And here is the bigger problem with these mufflers. It's anecdotal, but I think we've all, in going up in 95, have all of a sudden been inundated by 2, 3 vehicles weaving in and out of traffic with loud mufflers. They seem to attract each other, and it turns into a mutual, let's drive dangerously. I think we have all seen that. There was a tragedy in Burke, in my district, on a 4-lane road that's a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit with many entrances and exits into townhouses and parking lots and strip malls. 3 young kids from Robinson High School pulled out into traffic and were hit at 80 miles an hour. Now, 1 was killed, 2 were seriously injured. But in the community telephone call that we had afterwards, a lady got on and said, right before I heard the crash, I heard the mufflers. I heard the mufflers. Clearly 2 folks had found each other and decided to get into a dangerous game of cat and mouse or a drag race or whatever. I don't know what causes this. I have a place in my district where people are putting on muffler adaptations that sound like drive-by shootings. They think it's cute. I got Mini Coopers that sound like Formula One racers. And it's a problem in other parts of the state, but let's iron it out in Planning District 8. And this way, a police captain can say, guys, we're getting a lot of complaints. Let's enforce this week. I don't think you're going to see a lot of people pulling over at random, but it gives them an enforcement measure where we're doing this on purpose. We're trying to protect the community's peace and tranquility here. And once the good news here is that, once you've identified somebody and what have you, at some point in time, they're likely to get the problem fixed, because they're going to continue to get pulled over if they don't fix it. And I think this is a neat, clean way. Keep things out of court. Keep things for an unprovable thing for police officers. And I think it's got a lot of potential. Let's see how it works. And that's the bill, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. We have a few questions, and then I have a couple of questions and comments too. Senator Suderline, followed by Senator Sturdivant. Senator Suderline, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I appreciate Senator Marston sharing that. One of the areas I'm curious about with this legislation is police being able to pull over someone based on their own judgment. And in the last several years, the Commonwealth has taken the policy to make it much more difficult to pull people over for things that aren't judgment calls, but even things that we just can tell, and we all know if it's missing a headline or not. Don't you have any concern about? Do you have any concern about that?
I think did we not address
Senator
that?
Marsden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe we addressed some of that and improved the ability to pull over for these things that weren't just a question of an out-of-date sticker or whatever, but something that was actually, harming other people with the noise levels. I thought we had addressed some of that. I may be, mistaken, but it is, in the original language of pulling cars over for noise violations, it was in the judgment of the officer. They had no equipment, and they would take people to court based on their what they thought, and it was a very messy process and hard to get convictions and wasted the court's time and effort. And this is based on science, and it does inconvenience people a little bit, but there's no charge for it. If you pass, you're good. You don't have to pay anything. You just, the only thing is if you flunk or you don't show up, then you could get $250 added to your vehicle registration.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Senator Marston.
Thank you so much. Senator Sturdivant, question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excuse me. Couple of concerns that I had reading the bill. Number one, and I understand it's a pilot project, and so it's limited to Planning District 8. The concern I have is how people can be put on notice if they're subject to this exhaust volume limit. They would have to know where Planning District 8 and whether or not they're in Planning District 8. So I think that their number one concern is sort of a notice issue. And then the second one is similar to what Senator Suderline referenced, is it's a judgment call for the police officer to say if it's 96 decibels versus 93 decibels, to make that judgment call on the scene. But we're also exempting those whose vehicles are 95 decibels or above if it comes like that from the factory. And so we're kind of creating a law that is a problem from a notice standpoint, if you're in Planning District 8 or not, and from a almost impossibility to enforce, because is this a stock from the manufacturer exhaust system? Is it above 95 decibels or below based on an individual officer's judgment call? And so those are my two concerns.
Thank you, Senator Marsden.
Chair, Senator Sturtevant, what my intent would be here is this: if this is successful, is that we put in some kind of grandfather situation and say, if I was putting it in right now, saying vehicles sown in the Commonwealth of Virginia after 2028 shall not exceed, that noise level. I don't want to, take something that somebody bought off the lot, not having to think about it, that they would be penalized, for that. What I'm trying to get is the aftermarket installation of these devices, or or putting in an actual muffler designed to create that noise. Delegate Watts calls them macho mufflers. It is why it has become a huge problem. I can't say, but it has. And people can't sleep at night. I don't stay at Miller and Rhodes anymore because of the traffic noise in the middle of the night on Broad Street. And we're not getting after motorcycles here. It's just passenger cars. This is a start to see if we can start winding down the whole issue of these vehicles on the road and seeing what we can do. And I know in the Richmond area, what I heard from state police, it's truck vehicles coming in from a lot of times Powhatan and Goochland to gather in a parking lot of a late at night closed down mall, having engine gunning contests that disturb the peace and tranquility of neighbors in the Richmond area. And so this might be something that could be looked at there. Every region seems to have a different problem, and some will have none at all.
Thank you. Senator Aird has a question or a comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had two things, but first is a question.
Senator Aird.
Thank you. Senator Marsden, when you were responding to Senator Sudaline, he was bringing up the point about some of the past action that we have taken to try and, I would say, eliminate some of the more judgment calls, if you will. And you said that some of that had been cleaned up in this substitute. And I just wanted to clarify specifically whether this is a primary reason that someone may be pulled over and stopped based on the judgment of the officer, like no other reason, just solely because of the noise of the muffler.
That is the understanding. It is not a secondary pullover. But the difference between this and dead stickers and dead tags, those don't hurt anybody else. They don't bother anyone else. In this situation, you are creating a problem for people. So when an officer comes up and finds these guys in an engine gunning contest and what have you, it gives him an opportunity to do that. But I am sensitive to what you are talking about, and we did make a lot of progress in that area. But somebody who has a dead inspection sticker, that does not harm me. But somebody driving down Broad Street at 105 decibels in the middle of the night and engaging somebody else in a drag race between 5th Street and 8th Street is we've got to find ways of coming up with remedies to fix those kinds of problems that are disturbing our neighborhoods.
Madam Chair.
Senator Aird.
Thank you. Senator Marsden, might I ask if you had given consideration to when we were previously having discussions around changing some of those things like the inspection sticker and things hanging from your rearview mirror, that there had been significant data around individuals being targeted because of those stops. And so I'm very sensitive to the incident that happened in your community, but I'm even more sensitive to thinking about someone, again, being stopped perhaps or targeted perhaps when there's a guess or judgment call that may be needed based on the sound of a muffler. And so I just wondered if you had given that further consideration based on our previous efforts.
Senator Marsden.
Madam Chair, if I might ask staff, my recollection is that Delegate Carr brought some legislation back that allowed for a primary on vehicle noise. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, Senator, I don't recall, but I would have to double check on that.
Perhaps state police, and it's just my recollection, but I thought that was addressed.
Senator Marsden, let's have Officer Maxey speak to us.
And Madam Chair, I'm not as tall as the senator here. Madam Chair, Ron Maxey, Virginia State Police, and Senator Aird. This in 2022, Delegate Carr did carry a bill returning this to a primary offense. So currently, it's primary, not secondary. This would just remain in that same vein.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. We have not heard any testimony from anyone else yet. Senator Marsden has been answering questions from us. Did you bring anybody else with you to speak on your bill?
I did not.
All righty. Is there anyone in the audience in support of the bill?
If there's anyone online that would like to speak in opposition, please raise your hand.
Ma'am, if you would like to come up and speak and introduce yourself, tell us your name and who you're with, and appreciate that.
Thank you. Vicki Hart, Louisa County, Virginia, town of Louisa specifically. My question is,
Madam Chair, Madam, we don't have question and answer.
No,
if you would like to.
It's a statement more
Okay,
than a question.
thank you.
I'm not looking for an answer. With the awareness that human hearing loss begins at 85 decibels, 1 minute at 95 decibels is all it takes to cause permanent hearing loss. It costs you less than $20 to buy a portable decibel meter. So there is no reason to say that we would have to be targeting somebody if we do something as simple as buying a simple decibel meter for these officers to have in their vehicle. And the effect on hearing for someone who will end up with permanent hearing aids or total loss of hearing just because of this, because they're having fun, they don't realize it until the hearing loss hits them later. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Senator Marsden?
Madam Chair, if I might, I agree that would be a great solution. The problem is the continuing need for calibration of these machines before you would, go to court to do that. But perhaps the Department of Criminal Justice Services would make that part of their training and make those available as just a measure, not of proof, but of blanking on the term here, but a probable cause.
Thank you.
That could certainly be put into the system because the bill does call for in the enactment clause the ability to put in processes that would make the bill work.
Thank you, Senator Marsden. Are there people here in opposition to the bill?
If there's anyone online that would like to speak in opposition, please raise your hand.
All righty. Hearing none. This is an issue that I have heard in my community over and over and over again. I actually had one of my constituents called me and he started screaming so angrily that I was worried he was going to have a heart attack. So I think this is for a lot of people really affecting their quality of life. This is a pilot program, and I ask if anybody has a motion.
Move to report, and wanted to thank the patron for the indulgence in working on this with a lot of folks.
And a second?
It's a second to report as amended.
Thank you.
Or as a substitute.
And it's going to have to go to finance, right?
Correct. And there is
So-
a budget amendment, Madam Chair.
So the motion is to report the substitute and re-refer to finance. If the clerk would call the roll. Senator Hashmi didn't get hurt. There we go.
Ayes 8, no 6, abstentions 1.
Senator Marsden, your bill reports 866.
Thank you, Madam
One
Chair.
abstention. Thank you. Senator Stanley, I see you there.
Your light is on.
Your light is on your phone. Senator Stanley, you've got SB 94. We are returning to the tow truck portion of the meeting. If you would tell us about your bill, and looks like it's just exactly like you
Thank you, Madam
filed.
Chair. Members of the committee, Senate Bill 94 is to address the problem that we have going on that's proliferating in my region, in my area, in the division that we have in Martinsville, Henry County, Patrick County, Franklin County. What we have is there are tow trucks that are going on the list. The state police has a list, of course, a discharge list where they go through, and each time there's an accident, they're supposed to go through the list. But what we're having and what we're seeing are tow truck companies are giving their cards and putting numbers on the back so they know who they are to EMTs, first responders, police, and firefighters. Not police, but firefighters, EMTs who might respond to a scene. And they're using them to say, if you can solicit for me so that I get this tow job, then I'm going to cut you in on some of the action. And so they're paying by having people go out and solicit for them. That way they claim jump on the line. If you're in an accident, or let's say a trucking company's in an accident, has no preference on a toll or who's going to get them out of the ditch, then they go through the list. And one of the ways these unscrupulous tow companies kind of do this is they form 3 different names for their companies. Another way is that they try to obfuscate and get around the non-solicitation on the list by having the people, the first responders that are going to be there, exclusive of the deputies and the state police, to hand that card, get that tow job, and then they basically have induced them to solicit on their behalf. So what this bill tries to do on its line 70 is basically this: no tow truck driver or recovery operator shall solicit or offer towing service or cause, and this is the key here, or cause any other person to solicit or offer towing services in any manner at the scene of any wrecked or disabled motor vehicle upon a highway when such a wrecked or disabled motor vehicle reasonably necessitates removal by a tow truck. There's a penalty if they do this. Quite frankly, I don't know if it's bribery, extortion, RICO, whatever it is, but it's causing havoc, and quite frankly, it hurts the consumer, and that's what I think is one of our biggest challenges. And so that is the bill.
Thank you, Senator Stanley. Senator DeSteph, followed by Senator Marsden. No?
Madam Chair, Senator Stanley, I had one quick question.
Senator DeSteph.
And Senator Stanley, if my car breaks down in the middle of, let's say, I don't know. No, I-81. Or I-80. I'm out in the Southwest, and I break down in the fast lane because I normally travel in the fast lane.
I bet you do.
And a tow truck driver comes up and says, "Hey, would you like me to tow you out of the way?" Knowing I'm blocking traffic and things are backed up, I would say, "Please get me out of here. Take me to the nearest service station, whatever." Would that tow truck driver now be fined or and charged with a Class 1 misdemeanor?
That would be no.
Senator Stanley.
Madam Chair, I would answer the gentleman by saying no. In the same way, if I'm in a courtroom and somebody gets charged and says, "You need a lawyer," we're not allowed to solicit. As lawyers, we cannot solicit. There's a different level of solicitation. I think when you're trying to either get to the front of the line, you're trying to overcome the will or the free will of the person that's in the car needing the tow, doing it unscrupulously, then that's a problem. But when you're in an emergency situation and there just happens to be a guy with a hook right there next to you, I don't think that's what this addresses. It's not intended to. It is merely intended to stop them using our EMTs with kickbacks to try to get to the front of the line and get jobs, because they know that the EMT, the first responder, they're the first on the scene usually when there's an accident, and it's become quite a problem.
Okay, Senator DeSteph.
Madam Chair, Senator Sanders, thank you very much. We may want to try to tighten it up just a little bit more on that piece, and I'm fine with it happening in the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Marsden, question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had a similar bill that more was around people getting on radios and hearing that there was an accident somewhere and then rushing to the scene. And usually what they try to do is they try to be fair with the different towing companies, so they just sort of take them in order and everybody gets their turn, and you don't have two people showing up at the same time to argue over who got there first and what have you. It provides order to things. It's kind of like what they do with bail bondsmen. Every once in a while they change the order at the jailhouse so that the guy at the top of the list is an advantage, so they rotate, and it's all part of that whole process of being fair to people who are competitors, but at the same time, it is important that only one person be involved in a public safety tow, and that is the tow truck driver who was called appropriately by the police.
Thank you so much. Senator Rome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question for the patron.
Senator Rome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I am not on courts, bless, and I will never be on courts. So I have a question on line 75. Class 1, I mean, that puts you in jail for a full year, if I'm not mistaken, or up to a full year, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, I'd answer the senator by saying a conviction on a Class 1 misdemeanor has a sentence up to 12 months in jail and a fine of $500. Usually, in these type of situations, you're probably not going to get that, especially if you get a good lawyer. Here's my card. And usually, that is the maximum punishment in a Class 1 misdemeanor scenario. Usually, unless it is prolific over and over and over, most prosecutors are going to probably lessen the charge and/or the fine and/or the jail time, if any.
Senator Rowe.
Right. So, Madam Chair, a follow-up question would be on this. We write the code based on, instruction to a judge as opposed to instruction of a potential plea bargain, or to knock down something. It seems that class 1 is pretty significant in terms of misdemeanor for someone who, as the senator from Virginia Beach was basically describing here, someone might actually be trying to help someone, right? And that they could be subject to this. And I understand at that point that, a good attorney could get this knocked down, whatever. We should not be putting things into the code based on what a good attorney can do versus what a not good attorney can do. With all due respect to the, I'm sure, very capable senator here. So I was wondering if the senator would be willing to entertain an amendment to knock that down to something that does not require jail time or does not require a $2,500 fine.
Senator
Madam Chair, it's a
Stanley.
$500 fine on a misdemeanor.
Is it 500?
500.
It's 25.
It's 500.
It gets up to a year in prison too,
12 months
right?
of $500 fine.
Do we want to?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I am more than willing to do whatever this body is willing to do. Class 2 is fine. It is up to the will of the body. What we're trying to stop, here's why I think this is not just some throwing a class 1 misdemeanor on a criminal penalty on something. This is kickbacks. It's using our public safety people to solicit business. It's not good. And I don't think we pay our public safety people enough. They shouldn't have to rely on this, but it really has created some criminal problems, or some problems that I believe are criminal. But with the will of the body, I'm more than willing to lessen the punishment.
Senator Stanley, I wonder if we want to think through this for a few minutes before we make a decision about it.
Madam Chair,
Can you turn up your volume? We really
Chair.
can't hear you back here at all.
Madam Chair, for clarification, a Class 1 misdemeanor can be confinement in jail for not more than 12 months and a fine of not more than $2,500, either or both.
I've never gotten a $2,500 fine for a client in misdemeanor, so I don't look at maximums, man. They don't happen.
And Madam Chair, for a Class 2 misdemeanor, confinement in jail for not more than 6 months and a fine of not more than $1,000. Class 3, a fine of not more than $500. Class 4, a fine of not more than $250.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion on the bill or?
Did we hear the other side, those against it?
Oh, we have not. Are there members of the audience who are in support of this bill?
If there's anyone online that would like to speak in favor of the bill, please raise your hand.
Is there anyone in opposition to the bill?
If there's anyone online that would like to speak in opposition, please raise your hand.
God, excuse me. I was wondering if somebody from the state police might be willing to talk about what concerns or what would happen if we had a law that said that no tow truck could, or VDOT. I'm concerned about putting something in the code that says that tow trucks can't come unless they've been specifically invited, which is the way I'm reading this bill.
Madam Chair, Ron Maxey, Virginia State Police. I appreciate the senator. We did speak with him earlier today. We have no position on the bill. We would have a concern with the not being allowed to offer a tow. My interpretation, just personally as a law enforcement officer, would be in the scenario presented by Senator DeSteph that there's a solicitation or offer. I would see the offering of the tow in that situation to be in violation if this were to pass.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to move to report, knowing that Senator Stanley will tweak that to make sure that that's no longer an issue down the road on this one.
Substitute motion, Madam Chair.
Substitute motion.
Madam Chair, I think because we're dealing especially with that misdemeanor part, I think this is going to be a question that we're going to have to deal with for the courts folks, and I think it would probably be best to re-refer to courts another time, but maybe let's just carry it over for the year. Let's see if we can knock this thing out and figure something out in the meantime.
Okay. Is there a second? All righty, there is a second on the substitute motion, which would be to carry the bill over. If the clerk would open the roll.
Ayes 7, noes 8.
The motion fails, 7-8,
Madam Chair.
which leads us back to the original motion. Yes, Senator Sudalan.
So the motion before us now is to report as it currently came to us and with no amendments. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Madam Chair, I don't like the Class 1 misdemeanor.
I don't either. Well, we operate by motion.
I don't think
Senator
that, I think that a motion to report is supreme to a motion to amend. So I guess we have to run the motion to report.
If the clerk would call the roll.
Madam Chair.
We've already had a substitute
Yeah,
motion.
we got to go back to report. Unless someone withdraws it.
Unless someone wants to withdraw their initial motion, then we will vote on the motion.
No, I
You
think
wish
we're
to-
good. I think we should.
you wish to vote
'cause
on the
I
motion.
believe that Senator Stanley will work with us and fix this before it hits the floor.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if I may address that.
Yes, Senator
Absolutely, and
Stanley.
as we look at it, and there may be an easy fix here, which is if the first part is what we have the issue with, the tow truck driver soliciting is not the concern. It's the use of third parties to solicit that are then given kickbacks.
Madam Chair.
That's what.
Senator
Primary
Aird.
inquiry. Can you please clarify the status of the bill?
There is a motion and a second on the bill to pass as amended, understanding that there will be continued work.
Just report.
There's no amendment. Okay, with a conceptual wish to amend it in the future.
We have another meeting. We can always take it by until next week.
Senator Stanley, we are going to have another meeting. Would you be open to us passing it by for the week and
Madam
trying to
Chair,
get
you
this
and I
done
have
next
worked
week?
together for a number of years.
So many
We've done
years.
a lot of great things together.
We
If
have.
you ask me to do anything, I'm going to do that.
Madam Chair, with that, I'd like to amend my original motion to take this bill by for the week to ensure that we get to the position that I believe everybody wants to get, to where everyone can support this.
So, Senator D. Steph, is that, am I hearing you that you wish to withdraw your motion?
Withdraw my original motion
Thank you.
and present another motion to pass this by for the week.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is that a recorded vote? It's a voice vote. Okay, all in favor of passing it by for the week? Aye. Any opposed? All righty, we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Before we move any further, Senator Obenshane has a bill, SB 617, that would, dealing with the Commonwealth Mass Transit Fund and the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority budget and operating assistance, would provide that payments and obligations arising from or related to any contract pertaining to employee compensation and work conditions under the normal operations of WMATA may include in the calculation of a WMATA budget increase for the purpose of a cap of such budget increase. Current law provides that any payment or obligation of any kind arising from or relating to legal disputes or proceedings between or among WMATA or any other person or entity shall not be used in calculating the WMATA budget increase. I have had a conversation with Senator Obenshane, understanding that Senator Eben has an ongoing study. He asked me to present the bill with the understanding that we were going to pass it by. I will write a letter to have his language included in the budget, and I need a motion on that in a second. And a second. All righty. Yes. And I will send a letter if we could open the rolls.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Thank you very much. I think we are now down to Senator DeSteff and Senator Rome. Senator Rome, your bill. Senator DeSteff, you want to go? Go ahead.
I'll sit down and let Senator Rome go.
No, I yield the floor.
Go ahead, Senator DeSteff, you've got the floor. It's our last towing bill of the day.
Madam Chair, members of the esteemed Transportation Committee, we've got Senate Bill 261. And to kind of give you an overall, and then we do have a substitute or a line amendment on this, but the issue that this solves is if your car is stolen and it's towed, then the tow truck driver cannot charge you for that tow. However, with a police report, that tow truck driver can get reimbursed from the Victim's Witness Fund for the tow he provided.
Senator DeSteff, before you go any further, can we, do I have a motion to approve the amendment? And second. Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Please continue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And what we're doing here with the amendment, and it's super easy, super simple, it replaces line 40 and the beginning of line 41 with provide the report number and the name of the law enforcement agency receiving the report that the motor vehicle was stolen, illegally used, or used without the permission. And what that allows is for them to get a police report with that number, and then they've got something they can show the Victim Witness Fund where they can get reimbursed for the tow. So this truly is a good bill. We worked with a few of the groups to make sure we tweak this to where there would be no issues and they're not waiting for a police report before they can recover the car. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there questions of the patron? All righty. Do you have anyone with you to speak on your
Madam
bill?
Chair, we've had so many people on this one talk about it. I think we're good.
Okay.
I'm happy if anyone wants to support or oppose, but I think we're pretty good on this one.
All righty. Is there anyone in opposition to the bill? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
Move to report as amended.
All righty. Senator DeSteff, we will call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I got everybody right? Yep.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Thank you. Your bill reports 15 no. Senator Rome, I think you are the final one. If your bill reports, it must go to finance. And if you have amendments, let's get those processed at the beginning.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, for SB 282, we do have an amendment. It is on line 42, introduced after C, insert. However, nothing in this subsection shall be construed to permit the use of such funds for the installation, maintenance, and operation of photo speed monitoring devices as defined in 46.2-882.1. This is by the request of the esteemed senator from Colonial Heights, and therefore that is the amendment. Thank you, Madam Chair. All right, so Madam Chair, now the bill as amended here. This is the Transportation Safety Fund legislation that I've been putting forward for last few years, and in its current form, what this bill is now going to do is take 10% of general fund surplus dollars that are not already constitutionally allocated, which have to go to the Water Quality Fund or go into our reserves funds, and we're going to now allow that money to go into the Virginia Highway Safety Improvement Program. So the allocations of such funds would be appropriated using the investment strategy previously adopted by the Virginia Department of Transportation's Commonwealth Transportation Board. All funds appropriated from this budget surplus shall be used solely for the purposes of funding efforts to address hazardous road locations and features or to address specific and identified highway safety problem. So this includes for bikes, this includes for pedestrians, and this includes for vehicular traffic. The goal of this is to deal with infrastructure. And Madam Chair, if I'm going to just give you some numbers from the last few years, 2023, we had 906 fatalities on Virginia roadways. And you can see that online at the dashboard.virginia.gov website. The year before that, we had 1,005 fatalities on Virginia roadways. The year before that, we had 968 fatalities on Virginia roadways. Prior to that, the last time we had more than 1,000 was in 2007. We had several years in the 700s and 800s. The last 3 years have had the highest number of fatalities for the last decade and actually beyond. The point we want to solve here is knowing fully well that there are always going to be people who simply break the law, who speed, who do whatever, as we've been hearing about cases today. We can't change everyone's behavior, but we did pass a bill of mine last week to have more enforcement for that. This bill doesn't deal with the enforcement. This deals with the infrastructure changes that necessitate the driver to have to change behavior, such as with a modern roundabout, instead of a signalized intersection, where a signalized intersection might have 36 to 42 conflict points, a modern roundabout could have as few as 8. And as we have seen in Loudoun County at the intersection of 15 and 50, when we had the introduction of those modern roundabouts over at Gilbert's Crossing, we reduced traffic crashes by 92% in that area, and specifically brought down the number of angle crashes that cause fatalities and serious injuries. My goal for this legislation is, for just being as candid with you as possible, is to help out people in Gainesville at Rollins Ford Road and Somerset Crossing Drive, to help out my commuters on Route 28, and then kind of go from there. But the fact of the matter is, the Virginia Highway Safety Improvement Program needs significantly more funding in order to keep up with the very demand that the Senator and I both spoke about at dialogue here last week. So with that, Madam Chair, that's the bill.
Thank you very much, Senator Rome. Senator DeSteff, followed by Senator Soderline.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a comment. I want to thank the senator for the line amendment. We had a bill last week about the speed cameras, and I think one of the concerns that both Senator Rome and I share is that the speed cameras can sometimes disincentivize doing the infrastructure upgrades to make intersections safer. And so that was sort of the genesis of our conversation over that line amendment. And with that, I think this is a good bill to help make sure that there are dedicated funds for making these sort of infrastructure improvements that will really improve traffic safety, rather than just the ability to ticket people and disincentivize them that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Soderline, you're up. He's,
Wait, I'm happy to go.
Yours is probably more relevant to this.
Senator DeSteff, you have the floor.
Madam Chair, Senator Rome, if I may, how much was surplus for the last 3 years by year? I'm sure you have that breakdown.
So, Madam Chair, my understanding is it depends when you calculated that, because the number had gone up to like 5 billion, for example, at one point, and then I think it was lower than it was like more like 3.1 billion. This is over the biennium. But I would certainly, before I refer to that, I would refer to someone from the state who could be able to answer what the current situation is, because that had been for previous year.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Follow-up question.
is there anyone in the audience that can answer that? And if not, Senator Rome, did you say 3.3 million or 3.3 billion?
Madam Chair, it was billion with a B that I had used in terms of what our surplus had been. But again, that was depending on how you had looked at it, because my understanding at the time, and I would refer, if we have anyone here from finance, well, Madam Chair, I know you're finance, but this is the sort of thing where are you looking at it just in terms of the entire gross, or are you looking at it after the adjustments that you've had to make for Water Quality Fund, which is already part of what we do whenever we have a surplus, along with the 2 reserve funds. And then I think last time there was also like another spending thing that that had to be triggered that was calculated differently depending on who's talking about it. So I don't know what the exact number is for the current year that we're in right now. That's why I told the senator, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Rome. Senator Suderline?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just briefly, I'm not enthusiastic. I appreciate the senator's great concern, and I'm not enthusiastic about dealing with surplus this way. But one benefit of it would be further disincentive from the chronic, systemic under forecasting of every administration, Republican or Democrat. And of course, it drives me crazier when it's Democrats doing it. But I don't like it when anyone does it. And I think that's a side benefit of this. I just don't want to send it specifically all to the 10% to transportation, but I appreciate what the senator's trying to do here.
So,
and I think it has that side benefit.
Madam Chair.
Senator Rome.
Madam Chair, if I can respond to that. So here's a few things that come with this. Number one, for example, when we look at that surplus, right, one of the things I'm trying to get at here is what can we do to increase and substantially increase transportation funding, which we all know has been decreased just in the last couple of years alone by 9 digits, right? What do we do to do that without raising taxes, raising fees, or doing other stuff, right? This is the way that we do this that I've proposed, because this means in good years where we can afford to do this with a substantial amount of money, we're going to have a pretty significant infusion that goes into the Virginia Highway Safety Improvement Program to cut those very fatalities that I had just talked about before. The second thing is there is no alternative game in town at all in any other piece of legislation right now that would significantly increase funding in transportation safety in this General Assembly. This is it. There's no other alternative. And so this is the ask for the committee here is, are we going to do something when we have had 3 years in a row of more than 900 fatalities on Virginia roadways, including a year of more than 1,000? This is what I've put on the table, and if anyone has a counteroffer, Madam Chair, I am certainly willing to entertain it.
Thank you, Senator Rome. Senator Williams-Graves, did you have a question?
Madam Chair, at the appropriate time, I would like to move to report.
Thank you. We have anyone in the audience in support of this bill?
If there's anyone online that would like to speak in favor, please raise your hand.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm Mindy Carlin here for the Prince William Chamber of Commerce. We want to thank the senator for bringing this bill forward and for her commitment to recognizing the importance of investment in our transportation infrastructure, not just for economic opportunity and convenience, but for safety purposes. And it's absolutely critical. And, you know, they say there's no better way to express what your priorities are than how you spend your money. And we certainly believe that spending more on ensuring our infrastructure is safe is an important priority that should be recognized. So we urge your support of the bill and thank the senator.
Thank you so much. Are there others here to support the bill?
Madam Chair, there are 2 people online that would like to speak.
Thank you.
Mike, please unmute and make sure your camera's on.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to talk, Madam Chair and esteemed members of the committee. My name is Mike Doyle. I'm the founder of Northern Virginia Families for Safe Streets. We're a pedestrian-focused group in Northern Virginia. And we strongly encourage this bill being passed. For every person that is killed, there statistically are 7 to 8 people that are, quote, seriously injured. I was a person that was called seriously injured. It took me 3 years of neurological rehab to recover. And I'm fortunate. There are other people who have been permanently crippled, both physically and cognitively. And this bill is just one of the solutions to try to get the funding to fix the roads. It's not the magic bullet, but it will help to save lives. Speed cameras help. It's not a magic bullet. It's a combination of things to make the roads safer. and this will help in the much-needed funding to improve the safety of the roads. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Doyle. I'm sorry for your trouble that you've had. Appreciate you speaking to us. There's someone else.
Brantley, you can unmute.
Good afternoon, Ms. Chairwoman. Brantley Tyndall, Virginia Bicycling Federation, and I echo everything Mike said. Appreciate support of the bill.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So my staff informed me that the budget surplus had been $3 billion over the official revenue forecast, generating $5.1 billion in excesses resources for the year as of July 19th, 2023.
Thank you very much. Are there individuals here who are in opposition to the bill?
If there's anyone online that would like to speak in opposition, please raise your hand.
All righty, hearing none. Is there, we operate by motion.
And Madam Chair, if I'm correct, I believe the motion, if it is to be successful, will be moved to report as amended and referred to finance.
And referred to finance, yes. Okay.
As amended. Madam Chair, move to report as amended and refer to finance.
All righty. If we could have the clerk open the roll.
Ayes 9, no 6.
Senator Rome, your bill is moving forward to finance 9-6. Your bill
Thank you, Madam
reports.
Chair. Thanks to the
Thank
committee.
you. I believe we have come to the end of our work. The committee will rise.
Good job.
Thank you.
The Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia.